Happening today, Jon Jones is set to appear in court this morning to face felony charges.
APD says it tried for more than a day to get in touch with the UFC fighter in connection with a hit-and-run crash that broke a pregnant woman's arm. News 13's Catherine Mazzone has more on where Jones is this morning. Catherine.
That's right, Adam. I checked this morning, and Jones is already out of jail after he turned himself into police. This all stems from a crash Sunday morning when a driver ran a red light at Southern and Wantabo, hitting two cars. Police say that driver was Jon Jones.
Inside the vehicle, we found what I guess would be considered sports memorabilia, with a lot of Jon Jones sports memorabilia. We found rental car paperwork.
Police say that paperwork also pointed to Jones. Witnesses told police after hitting the cars, Jones got out of the car and ran, but he came back to his SUV, grabbed a wad of cash, and then took off again. According to a criminal complaint, police also found a marijuana pipe with marijuana inside. An off-duty police officer helped to ID Jones, telling investigators, quote, "I watch UFC all the time. I know what Jon Jones looks like." Now, this isn't Jones's first brush with the law. He was convicted of a DWI in New York after he drove into a pole, and he got into trouble in December when he tested positive for cocaine before defending his lightweight title. Back to you, Adam.
Catherine, thank you. These are felony charges, and coming up in our next half hour, we'll tell you how much prison time Jones could get if convicted.
We turn now to this. News 13 is getting answers from Chief Gordon Eden about one of his officers charged with aggravated battery for beating up a man on the job.
Absolutely disgusting.
According to a state police report, Officer Cedric Greer, Officer Jerry Rauch, and a cadet took a call at the Best Choice Inn on Central near Louisiana. That was on March 20th. They found this man who was asleep and had drugs on him. State police say Officer Greer punched the man repeatedly and asked him, "Who's the man?" Officer Rauch did not mention the beating in his report. It only came to light because the cadet reported it days later.
All of that information is very concerning to me, and that will be part of our internal affairs investigation.
The officers did not turn on their lapel cameras until after the incident. Greer turned himself in on Friday. Both he and Rauch are on paid leave at this time.
Federal officials say a City of Roswell employee is involved in a drug case. 46-year-old Arthur Luna is in custody this morning after an arrest by DEA agents and Roswell police. According to the criminal complaint, Luna was one of 10 people involved in trafficking marijuana through the city. He's charged with possession of marijuana with the intent to distribute, as well as conspiracy. Luna works for the city's Central Control, which is in charge of things like responding to sewage breaks and downed power lines.
Gender-neutral bathrooms could be in Santa Fe pretty soon. Mayor Javier Gonzalez announced he wanted single-stall restrooms in the city to be open to anyone in his state of the city. The proposal made it out of the Public Works Committee on a vote of 3-2, but it still has to go through another committee and the entire city council before the public can weigh in on this.
Big food fight continues at UNM today. Contracts with two of their locally owned restaurants, Sahara Restaurant and the Times Square Deli, have ended. The plan is to replace one of them with a national chain, the other with Wise Pies. The university says food selection is based on student feedback, but people on campus staged a protest yesterday.
They bring in Subway, they bring in a chain instead of us, instead of supporting local business.
I think we should do more to preserve places like this for UNM students.
Those businesses are supposed to move out by May 22nd. New and developing this morning, National Guard troops are arriving in Baltimore after a night of rioting there.
Yeah, the chaos erupted after the funeral of Freddie Gray, the 25-year-old man who died after suffering a severe spinal cord injury while in police custody. This is a live look at Baltimore this morning, where the governor has already issued a state of emergency. Tensions escalated Monday after Gray's funeral. Authorities say several Baltimore police officers were injured after being hit with rocks, sticks, and bottles. All are expected to be okay. Now, schools in the city will remain closed today. Take a look at the video here. You can see how the riot really took off. Well, the city's mayor also issued a citywide curfew that goes into effect tonight.
Also happening today, the Supreme Court will hear arguments in several cases that could decide whether same-sex couples have the right to marry. Justices will weigh questions on whether states have an obligation to perform same-sex marriages and whether states must recognize same-sex marriages performed in other states. Those cases before the court come from Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and Tennessee, all of which had their marriage bans upheld by a federal appeals court last year.
On to this now. A Washington mom is sharing video of a close call after an SUV nearly hit her daughters as they were trying to get off the school bus, or on rather. You can see the vehicle pass on the right side of the stop bus just before the girls approach the door there. The sisters are just 5 and 9 years old. Take a look at it right there. Very scary video. Their mom got the video from the district and posted it on YouTube, hoping someone would recognize the driver. Local sheriff's office is now investigating all of that.
That was just, I mean, there were literally inches there.
Oh, can you
on
believe
both sides.
that? And then you're not even able to stop them.
I know it.
Very terrifying.
Yeah. We'll see you then 5:32 and developing right now. We're taking a live look in Baltimore where thousands of armed National Guard members have taken position on the ground. And this is a burned out building right there after really a crazy night there.
Yeah, absolutely. Several buildings were actually burned to the ground there. We're talking complete chaos. It all ensued following the funeral of 25-year-old Freddie Gray. Many leaders are hoping it will stay somewhat calm, as you can see right now, and the protests there will just die down. But overnight, completely different story. Take a look at the video here. Hours after Gray was buried, riots began. Authorities say protesters, many teens who were just out of school, started the riots, pelting officers with rocks and bottles. Demonstrators looted stores, damaged cars, set fires to police cars there, and even a pharmacy. We just heard a senior center was also sparked ablaze, causing the governor, they declared a state of emergency there. More than a dozen officers were injured with this, with more than 30 arrests made. Gray died from severe spinal cord injury while in police custody. You might remember that. As night fell, the family of Freddie Gray condemned all of this violence.
I want y'all to get justice for my son, but don't do it like this here.
What we're seeing isn't anger, it's destruction of a community. The same community they say they care about, they're destroying.
Yeah, Baltimore's mayor is now imposing a week-long citywide curfew. That goes into effect tonight. Meanwhile, newly sworn-in Attorney General Loretta Lynch says the DOJ will send 2 officials there this morning as it continues its own investigation into Gray's death. We turn now to this. UFC fighter Jon Jones is set to face a different kind of judge today. The fighter is accused of running a red light Sunday morning and crashing into 2 cars, then taking off. News 13's Catherine Zone joins us in the Newsplex with what that means for Jones. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Crystal. Now, Jones is already out of jail this morning, but the charges he faces are severe. After injuries from the crash police say he caused were pretty bad.
They were reported to us by medical personnel as minor and not significant. We received some updated information that they could possibly have suffered from a broken bone or 2.
The pregnant woman's broken arm means Jones is now facing a felony charge, a 3rd-degree felony to be exact. Now, if convicted, Jones could face up to 3 years in prison. It all started Sunday morning when police say Jones ran a red light and slammed into 2 cars at Wantabo and Southern. Witnesses say he ran from the SUV after the crash, but came back to grab a wad of money before taking off again on foot. According to a criminal complaint, police also found a marijuana pipe with marijuana inside. Now, it took officers more than a day to get in touch with Jones. He finally turned himself in yesterday evening at Windrock Mall. Back to you, Crystal.
All right, thanks for that information, Catherine. As of right now, Jones is still set to headline the UFC 187 fight that's next month and defend his title. No word yet on whether his arrest will affect the fight. UFC had no comment last night.
Times 535 concern this morning over something that Albuquerque's police chief is wearing to represent the department. Chief Gordon Eden has 32 years of experience in law enforcement. He's only been with APD, though, for 1 of those years. But what he's wearing on his uniform seemed to suggest that he's been with APD that whole time. When Chief Eden began recording YouTube videos earlier this month, something on his uniform was especially noticeable. The 16 gold bars, which some say represent 32 years of service. He's been with APD for 1 year.
There are people talking, and the words that are thrown around now are fraud in the use of them or stolen valor. You know, it's not quite as bad as a guy wearing a military Medal of Honor, but he is wearing something he is not entitled to by the SOP. And he needs to remove them.
A spokesperson said only that the standard operating procedure, also called the SOP, has changed. But the SOP that's on the city's website is the same one that says service bars represent service with APD. Chief Eden has not responded to 2 emails asking about that new policy. New developments this morning in the murder trial of a man accused of beating a 75-year-old to death and then setting his body on fire. According to the Santa Fe New Mexican, a jury found Anthony Yepes guilty of second-degree murder yesterday evening. The jury also found him guilty of tampering with evidence and stealing a car in connection with the murder of George Ortiz. Altogether, the charges could land Yepes in prison for 22 years and 6 months. Yepes and his girlfriend, Jeannie Ann Sandoval, killed Ortiz in 2012 during a fight, then poured cooking oil on his body and set it on fire. Sandoval pleaded guilty to second-degree murder last year. She faces a maximum of 9 years in prison.
Following up for you this morning, a man accused in the axe murder of an El Rancho family is pleading not guilty. 20-year-old Nicholas Ortiz entered the plea Friday. The judge denied him bond, saying he was high risk. Ortiz was 16 when state police say he killed Dixie and Lloyd Ortiz and their son Steven in 2011 to steal cash and drugs. Ortiz, who is not related to the victims, was arrested in February.
We're gathering reaction this early hour from New Mexico's outgoing archbishop on Pope Francis's pick for his replacement. The 12th Archbishop of Santa Fe will be John C. Wester, the current Bishop of Salt Lake City. Wester says he plans to tackle poverty, push for immigrant rights, and get victims from church sex scandals the help that they need. He's replacing retiring Archbishop Michael Sheehan, who says Wester was also his pick for the job.
I think that Bishop Wester is a very balanced man. He avoids the extremes of ultra-conservative, ultra-liberal. He's just right down the line.
Wester's installation mass is Thursday, June 4th at the St. Francis Cathedral in Santa Fe.
A lot of people are talking about this. Millions of dollars gone trying to find a solution, yet a busy road in Albuquerque is still a magnet for speeding and crashes. Just over the weekend, there were 2 big crashes on Cole Avenue. One driver plowed through these black concrete posts near University, then drove onto the sidewalk, and just past Yale, another driver plowed through this sign. Neighbors there are worried, and they're pushing the city to find a solution fast.
We need to keep the cars off the sidewalk. That's the bottom line.
So the city says speeding down Cole is completely pointless because the signals there are actually timed.
City of Rio Rancho is looking to fix a stretch of Southern Boulevard between Highway 528 and Rainbow. The project would include widening lanes, adding traffic signals and lighting, as well as making it more pedestrian friendly. The goal is to begin road work in 2018. You can give your input at a public meeting scheduled for tomorrow night from 6 to 8 at El Rancho City Hall, or Rio Rancho City Hall, I should say.
And we're staying on top of yet another tuition hike at a popular New Mexico university. The New Mexico Highlands University Board of Regents has approved a 6.7% increase. The hike affects residents, undergrads who will now be coughing up nearly $5,000 a year. That's $300 more than before. The Regents did institute a 6% tuition cap on increases going forward for the incoming freshman class. They also approved an incentive for those freshmen, though, a $1,000 bonus check if they graduate in 4 years.
As you wake up today, the death toll in the earthquake in Nepal, as you can see, this destruction here is rising fast. Search and rescue workers now say at least 4,400 people have died in that disaster, but they still have not reached some of the country's more remote areas. So the prime minister there is now saying this morning that number could climb to 10,000. That's what CBS is reporting. Local Nepali families that we spoke with feel helpless, they say, with their family members overseas.
I didn't have long conversation with him, but according to what he sounds like, he sounds a little shocked.
Ken Botia's father is the owner at the Himalayan Kitchen in Durango, and he says that his father was on his yearly trip to Nepal when the quake struck, and now he's stranded there. Botia says he doesn't know when his dad will be back.
It's now 5:40. Take a look at this new video this morning out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. It shows a very unusual sight. A naked man walking the wrong way down the lanes of a freeway there. Police say he's James Jackson. You can see he's confidently striding down that highway, confronting the cars. At one point, almost being hit. Eventually, he takes off after being tased, and after a short chase, you can see police tase him once again, forcing him to the ground. He's now charged with indecent exposure, obstructing of justice, and attempted second-degree burglary for trying to rob a house earlier in the day. Could you imagine that?
That's what I was just about to say, too. How surprising that would be. Wow.
Can't believe it.